Good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. This is Joe Shoup. Today is July 25th. It's Tuesday. And today's topic is paradigms. And for most of you who've heard that word before, we're going to just cover a little bit of information regarding paradigms. First, let me put up a little document here for us and talk about what a paradigm actually is. And philosophy, a paradigm is a distinct set of concepts or thought patterns, including theories, research, methods, postulates, and standards of what constitutes legitimate contributions to a field. What's that really mean? It means that it's basically a set of thought patterns, concepts, ideas. And a paradigm shift obviously is a shift in those patterns of thought. This was basically identified by Thomas Kuhn, fundamental change in the basic concepts and experimental practices of scientific discipline. So we won't go into the scientific details of this when he actually came up with the idea of paradigms. But today what we're talking about are paradigms with regards to business. We're going to take a look at a video in a few minutes, but I want to describe something to you. I want to take you back in time. I want to take you back to the actual start of our country, basically. We had colonies, 13 colonies back in the 1700s. And people were coming from England and settling in what they called New England, the 13 colonies. And land and opportunity was the real wonder, the true wonder of the New World. But in 1763, trouble was brewing because Parliament actually barred colonists from further settling the frontier, which means they no longer had access to the land. Their own land, yes, that they had already acquired, but no new land. And overnight, Americans were denied the lands on which their dreams were to be built. And things changed. I mean, up until that time, the mother country, England, and the colonists got along. They all considered themselves British in these new colonies. But they all got along. There were no problems until this happened. So we had this, they started having a shift in their thinking. And what happened at that point, in 1765, England then made a proclamation. They decided that they were going to now tax people on paper goods, pamphlets, books, playing cards even, and they called it the stamp tax. Every piece of paper, from pamphlets to playing cards, required a revenue stamp. Plain and simple, it was a tax, and the people were in an uproar about it because they had never been taxed before. And this thinking, this changed everything. Wanting to tax, why were they taxing them? Because the British had gone to war with Spain and France, drove them out of North America, but did it at an unbelievable expensive rate. They were broke in England, and they needed to recover the money. They couldn't tax their own people in England because they had already taxed them severely. Now it was the colonists who were going to pay the price, except they weren't. And this is basically the start of that revolution. 8 years of fighting over this. And ironically, only 1/3 of the colonists actually agreed to a revolution. 1/3 totally did not, and the other third were indifferent. Didn't really have an opinion about it. Couldn't decide. But as Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of dedicated, committed people could change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Those colonists are the reason we are here today, even talking about this. For a long time, for 8 long years, even after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, they fought for the freedom because they were not going to have a country, another country, dictate what their political future was. And that's how it started. That pattern of thinking, that paradigm shift from we are happy with the monarch government to we want our own independent government, that paradigm shift changed everything. And without that thinking and those men and women who backed that, again, wouldn't be here talking about this today. So how does that relate to us? For the past 70 years, people have been working the MLM, home business, network marketing arena. They have been working for their freedom. We've been taught that we can get freedom, freedom of time, money, do what we want when we want. How many have really achieved that? The truth is, statistics show that 97% of the people have not achieved that. In fact, make little or no money. And it's very difficult to prospect and talk to people about a new venture until now, because a paradigm shift is taking place in the home business arena, the way people are being paid. The MLM business means multi-levels of pay. That's what it really means, being paid on levels. And the system never really worked for the majority of the people. What people weren't aware of is there is a business model called a cooperative business model that has been around for 100 years and is extremely successful. It is a cooperative model where the people actually own the business, just like the colonists were fighting to own the country. And times are changing. This paradigm shift is being brought about by a company called Power of Three Squared. It is changing the way people think about business, the way people get paid, because the people actually own the business. Not an individual or a corporation, but the people. We all know when to get paid, how we get paid is in direct proportion to the effort we put forth. Here in this cooperative business model, everyone participates and helps everyone get paid. And we'll talk about that more in the future on exactly the structure. But it is a shift in thinking. No longer the multi-levels of pay. Yes, you will be paid on levels, but it is a different model. And in fact, the cooperative business model being around over 100 years, well over 60% of cooperative business models are still in business over 5 years, whereas most businesses fail in 18 months in the individual category. And you can see those statistics. You can look those up and see the cooperative business model success over the last 100 years. And billions of people belong to cooperative businesses, and most people don't even know they exist. So you're hearing about a paradigm shift early enough to be part of it, to be able to participate instead of looking back 5 years from now, saying, I wish I would have listened. I wish I knew. Most of us look back on the .com industry and say, I wish I would have known. I should have invested in Microsoft. We all know that story. I should have bought gold many years ago. I should have paid attention. And as a result, you have a story now. Either you did or you didn't. You had success or you did not. So let's take a look at this business, at this paradigm shift, what it has done in the past to businesses, to individuals, and how some people saw it and others did not. And those that did not suffered greatly. Those who did benefited greatly. Let's take a look at that. Let's show you exactly what a paradigm shift is all about. And we'll do that in a second here. Anyway, here we go. Looks like we have it here now. And we will get going. So sit back, enjoy the next 5 minutes.
In the late 1930s, an inventor was trying to interest corporations in his new idea. He brought it to the research department of a major photographic company. This is a model of the actual kit he used to demonstrate the process to one of their senior scientists. With little more than a box, a bright light, a specially coated metal plate, and some fine black powder, he created almost instantly and with no wet chemicals a very faint picture of a set of numbers. Now, we don't know exactly what the scientist said about all this, but we do know one thing for sure. He wasn't interested in that silly idea, so he showed the inventor to the door. But the inventor, Chester Carlson, had the last laugh. You see, what he invented was electrostatic photography, the Xerox process. Pity that poor scientist. He was unable to see beyond his paradigm, and as a result, Kodak missed one of the biggest business opportunities of the 20th century. In the early 1960s, Japanese manufacturers were known for things very different than today. Cheap toys, poor quality steel, imitations of American products, simple electronics. And that was our expectation for Japan, to always produce inferior products. But unknown to most business executives in America, a paradigm shift was transforming Japan. W. Edwards Deming and Joe Juran, both Americans, were teaching the Japanese about total quality, or Six Sigma as we call it today. While the Japanese were learning to perfect things, American companies, in fact most companies around the world, ignored the whole quality idea because they saw no need to change. And so it was the Japanese who gained the high ground in quality. It was the Japanese who started an epidemic of quality that swept around the world. And it has cost American and European companies hundreds of billions of dollars to regain parity. That's how expensive it can be to miss a paradigm shift. Now, here's a paradigm question for you. What nation used to dominate the world of watchmaking? Switzerland, of course. For more than 100 years, they were renowned for their watchmaking excellence. In 1968, they had 65% of the world market share, more than 80% of the profits. Yet just 10 years later, their market share had fallen below 10%. And in the ensuing 3 years, they had to release 50,000 of their 65,000 watch workers. How could the Swiss watch industry be so rapidly destroyed? The answer is painfully simple. They were put back to zero by a paradigm shift. Many of you are wearing that paradigm shift on your wrists right now. The Quartz Movement watch. Totally electronic. 1,000 times more accurate than the mechanical watches it replaced. Battery powered. All new rules. So, who invented this revolutionary design? The Swiss themselves. right here in Neuchâtel at their research laboratories. Yet when their own researchers presented this idea to the Swiss watch manufacturers in 1968, they rejected it. After all, it didn't have any bearings. It didn't require a lot of gears. It didn't even have a mainspring. It had none of the marvelous mechanical complexity the Swiss were so good at. Therefore, it couldn't possibly be the future of watches. So confident were the Swiss manufacturers in that conclusion that they didn't even protect the idea. Later that year, the researchers displayed that watch for all to see at the World Watch Congress. Seiko of Japan walked past, took one look, and the rest is history. There is a crucial and profound truth hiding behind the paradigm examples I've shown you. No matter how tall your skyscrapers, or how big your market share, or how global your organization, when a paradigm shifts, everyone goes back to zero. Your past success guarantees nothing in your future. Toyota put General Motors back to zero. Walmart did it to Sears. Google did it to Microsoft. iPhone did it to BlackBerry. And it goes on and on. You know, if I'd been in Switzerland in 1967, I would have loved to have asked them the question I ask all my clients. What is impossible to do today in your business, but if it could be done, would fundamentally change it for the better? Maybe the Swiss would have realized that the quartz movement watch was the answer to that question and the answer to their future. Who knows? At any rate, it's an important question for you to ask at every level of your organization. Remember, what's impossible to do today may be easy to do tomorrow, just like the quartz watch. Please keep in mind that this is not a story just about the Swiss. It's about you. It's about me. It's about any organization, any culture, any nation that assumes that what has been successful in the past must continue to be successful in the future. Let me remind you once again, when a paradigm shifts, everyone goes back to zero. Not even the best watchmakers in the world could stop time.
Conclude with this. If the British would have paid attention to the colonists, if they would have seen the shift that was taking place, there wouldn't have been a war. There would have been a reconciliation, which is exactly what the colonists were looking for, not a revolution. Unfortunately, the British kept putting tariffs on things until the revolt happened, the Declaration of Independence. And years after that, war still broke out. But the truth is that paradigm shift changed everything around the world. Just as the Swiss watch makers saw the shift, the makers did, the company did not. We have a chance to take a look at a paradigm shift that's happening right now. A shift in the way people operate in the home business arena, the way they are paid. The shift from ownership by individuals and corporations to the members themselves. Again, not a new concept, but a new concept to this industry. And Power of Three Squared is making that happen. So you can either watch this happen or help make it happen. My suggestion is that you get back to the person who brought you here. If you are already with our company, then remember that it takes work. It takes an understanding of the pay plan, how it works, Study your business. Learn what it is to help others succeed. And that's what we're about. The shift is about truly helping other people succeed through a cooperative business model that has been successful for a century. So, I want to thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. I hope that you see the vision here and seize the opportunity that this company is putting forth. So I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week once again at the Breakfast Club. Have a great day, everybody.